Admiral Hyun-woo Kim stood at the wide window of the space station New Seoul, watching Earth turn slowly below. The blue planet looked peaceful from here, with white clouds swirling over green continents. It was hard to believe that this quiet world was home to billions of people who had spread across the galaxy. Hyun-woo was 55 years old, with graying hair and kind eyes. He wore the dark blue uniform of Earth's Space Defense Force. For 20 years he had served as Earth's main representative to the Galactic Confederation. Most days his job was boring. He attended meetings, signed papers, and helped solve small problems between different alien species. The aliens liked humans well enough. They thought humans were clever and good at fixing things. Humans built excellent machines and were fair when settling arguments between other species. But most aliens saw humans as nothing special, just another species among hundreds in the galaxy. This morning, Hyun-woo was reading reports from human colonies scattered across dozens of star systems. Most of the news was good. Crops were growing well. New factories were running smoothly. Children were being born and going to school. It was the kind of peaceful life that made Hyun-woo proud to be human. His assistant, Lieutenant Min-ju Park, knocked on his office door. She was a young woman with short black hair and a smart uniform. "Admiral, we have a message from New Busan Colony," she said. New Busan was one of humanity's most successful colonies. It sat on a planet called Kepler 442b, about 40 light-years from Earth. The planet had good soil, clean water, and perfect weather for farming. 50,000 humans lived there, along with their closest alien friends. "Put Dr. So-young Park on the screen," Hyun-woo said. The wall screen flickered to life. Dr. So-young Park appeared, smiling from her office on New Busan. She was a woman in her 40s with long black hair tied back neatly. Behind her, through a window, Hyun-woo could see the colony's main city. Tall white buildings rose between green parks and gardens. "Good morning, Admiral," So-young said. "I have wonderful news to share." "I'm listening," Hyun-woo replied, settling into his chair. "The Volani Harvest Festival is next month. Elder Taemin has invited the entire human colony to celebrate with them. It will be the biggest festival ever held on this planet." Hyun-woo smiled. The Volani were New Busan's neighbors and closest friends. They were tall, gentle beings who looked like walking trees. Their skin was brown and rough like bark, and green leaves grew from their arms and heads. They moved slowly and spoke in soft, musical voices. When humans first arrived at Kepler 442b, they found the Volani already living there. Many alien species might have fought over the planet, but the Volani welcomed the humans with open arms. They shared their knowledge of farming and growing food. In return, humans shared their technology and machines. Over 30 years, the two species had become like family. Human children played with young Volani in the forests. Human doctors worked with Volani healers to cure diseases. Human engineers helped Volani build better homes and schools. "That's excellent news," Hyun-woo said. "How is Elder Taemin doing?" "He's well, thank you for asking. He wanted me to tell you something." So-young's voice became more serious. "He said the Krillian ships have been seen near the border again." Hyun-woo frowned. The Krillians were an insect-like species from the far side of the galaxy. They had hard black shells and multiple arms. Their faces looked like giant beetles with sharp teeth. Unlike most species in the Confederation, the Krillians believed in war and conquest. "How many ships?" Hyun-woo asked. "Only a few scouts, but they've been there for weeks. The Volani are worried. I'll send Captain Do-hyun Lee to take a look. His patrol ship is the closest to your sector." Captain Do-hyun Lee commanded the patrol ship Sejong. It was a small but fast ship with good sensors and light weapons. Like most human military ships, it was designed for peacekeeping, not war. The galaxy had been peaceful for over 200 years. There was no need for massive warships when diplomacy solved most problems. After ending the call with So-young, Hyun-woo contacted Captain Lee. The captain appeared on screen from the bridge of his ship. He was a young man with sharp eyes and a serious expression. "Captain, I need you to check the border near New Busan. Krillian scouts have been spotted." "Understood, Admiral. We'll head there immediately." "Be careful, Captain. Keep your distance and just observe. We don't want to start any trouble." "Yes, sir. The Sejong will be there in 6 hours." Hyun-woo leaned back in his chair after the call ended. He wasn't really worried about the Krillians. They were aggressive, but they followed the laws of the Confederation like everyone else. They hadn't started a war in over a century. Lieutenant Minju brought him tea and a datapad with more reports. Admiral, the monthly fleet status report is ready for your review. Hyunwoo took the pad and scrolled through the numbers. Earth maintained 47 patrol ships like the Sejong scattered across human space. Each ship had a crew of 30 people and enough firepower to deal with pirates or smugglers. They were good ships, but nothing compared to the massive fleets that major military powers like the Confederation Navy maintained. The report also mentioned Earth's defensive platforms around the home system. 12 space stations with shields and weapons protected Earth and the inner planets. Again, nothing too impressive by galactic standards, just enough to make attacking Earth too expensive to be worth the trouble. What the report didn't mention were the strange construction projects in the outer solar system. For the past 50 years, human engineers had been building something near Jupiter's moons. The projects were classified at the highest levels. Even Hyunwoo didn't know all the details. When he asked about them, his superiors just smiled and said, "Insurance policy." The day passed quietly. Hyunwoo attended a video conference about trade agreements. He reviewed requests for new colonies. He approved supply shipments to existing settlements. It was the kind of peaceful, boring work that kept the galaxy running smoothly. That evening, he received another call from New Busan. This time it was Elder Taemin himself. The Villani leader appeared on screen, his ancient face creased with smile lines. Leaves rustled softly on his head as he moved. "My friend Hyunwoo," Taemin said in his gentle voice, "I wanted to thank you for sending Captain Lee. His ship was spotted near the border today. It made our people feel safer." "Of course, Elder. Humans protect their friends." "This is why we love your species," Taemin said. "In all our long history, we have never met beings more loyal than humans. We trust you completely." After the call ended, Hyunwoo stood again at his window, looking down at Earth. The planet was entering its night cycle, and lights twinkled in the darkness like stars. Somewhere down there in hidden facilities he barely knew about, other humans were working on projects that might never be needed. He hoped they would never be needed. The galaxy was peaceful. Humans were good at keeping it that way. But if that peace was ever threatened, if humanity's friends were ever in danger, Hyunwoo knew that Earth was ready. He just didn't know how ready. Captain Do-hyun Lee stood on the bridge of the patrol ship Sejong, staring at the sensor display in disbelief. What he saw there made no sense at all. "Run the scan again," he told his sensor officer, Ensign Haiwan Kim. "I've run it 3 times, sir," Haiwan replied, her voice tight with worry. "The readings are the same. 200 ships, all Krillian design, heading straight for the Villani homeworld." Do-hyun was 32 years old and had been commanding the Sejong for 5 years. In all that time, the biggest threat he'd faced was a group of pirates with stolen cargo ships. He had never seen anything like this. The Krillian fleet was massive. Each ship was 3 times the size of the Sejong, with heavy armor and powerful weapons. They moved in perfect formation through space, like a swarm of giant metal insects heading toward their prey. "Communications. Get me Admiral Kim immediately," Do-hyun ordered. "Sir, I'm trying, but there's some kind of interference. All long-range communications are being jammed." Do-hyun's blood went cold. Communication jamming was an act of war. No peaceful fleet would block radio signals unless they were planning something terrible. "Helm, set course for Verdania. Maximum speed." Verdania was the Villani homeworld, a beautiful planet covered in vast forests and crystal-clear lakes. 800 million Villani lived there in tree cities that grew naturally from the forest itself. It was one of the most peaceful places in the galaxy. "Sir," said Lieutenant Wu Bin Jiang, his first officer, "if we go to Verdania, we'll be heavily outnumbered. The Sejong can't fight 200 ships." "I know," Do-hyun said grimly, "but we can't just watch our friends get slaughtered." The Sejong was not a warship. It carried light pulse cannons for dealing with pirates and small missiles for emergency situations. Against a full battle fleet, it would last about 10 minutes. But Do-hyun had sworn an oath to protect human allies, and he intended to keep that oath. As they raced through space toward Verdania, Do-hyun tried desperately to contact other human ships. The nearest patrol vessel was Captain Mi-kyung-an's ship Cheonan, but it was 8 hours away. Admiral Kim's fleet at New Seoul was even farther. "Captain," Haiwan called out, "I'm detecting weapons fire near Verdania." On screen, the main display showed space around the Villani homeworld. Bright flashes of energy lit up the darkness as Krillian ships opened fire on everything that moved. Volani transport ships trying to evacuate civilians exploded one by one. The planet's small defense stations lasted only minutes against the overwhelming assault. Do-hyun watched in horror as the Krillians systematically destroyed every Volani ship and station. This wasn't a military conquest. It was extermination. "Sir, incoming transmission from the Krillian fleet," the communications officer reported. "Put it through." The screen filled with the image of a massive Krillian warrior. Its black shell gleamed under harsh lights and its forearms ended in razor-sharp claws. Multiple eyes studied Do-hyun with cold intelligence. When it spoke, its voice sounded like grinding metal. "Human vessel, I am War Prime Velthar of the Krillian Empire. You will leave the system immediately or be destroyed." "This is Captain Do-hyun Lee of the Earthship Sejong," Do-hyun replied, keeping his voice steady. "You are attacking civilians in violation of Confederation law. Stop this assault immediately." Velthar's mandibles clicked together in what might have been laughter. "Confederation laws for the weak. The Volani are weak. They deserve extinction. You humans are also weak. Leave now and you may live a few more years. I will not abandon our allies. Then you will die with them." The transmission ended. Immediately 20 Krillian ships broke off from the main fleet and headed toward the Sejong. "All hands battle stations," Do-hyun announced over the ship's intercom. "This is not a drill." Alarms blared throughout the small ship as the crew prepared for combat. In the engine room, Chief Engineer Young-ho Park pushed the reactor to maximum power. In the weapons bay, gunner's mate Soo-jin Ko loaded the torpedo tubes with their few remaining missiles. The first Krillian ship opened fire while still far away. Green energy beams lanced through space, missing the Sejong by only a few hundred meters. Do-hyun ordered evasive maneuvers and the ship twisted and rolled through space like a dancer avoiding deadly lights. "Return fire," Do-hyun commanded. The Sejong's pulse cannons fired bright blue beams at the nearest Krillian ship. The beams struck the enemy's thick armor and barely scratched it. The Krillians had shields and armor designed for real warfare, not the light weapons of a patrol ship. "Direct hit, no damage," Haewon reported. More enemy ships joined the attack, the space around the Sejong filled with deadly energy beams and explosive missiles. Lieutenant Jang worked frantically at his station, calculating escape routes and defensive patterns. "Captain, we can't win this fight," he said. "We need to retreat and get word to Earth." Do-hyun knew his first officer was right, but he couldn't bring himself to leave. On the planet below, millions of Volani were dying. These were beings who had welcomed humans as friends, who had shared their knowledge and culture. "They trusted humans to protect them, sir," Haewon shouted. "I'm detecting biological weapons in the atmosphere. The Krillians are using poison gas designed specifically for Volani physiology." The sensor readings were clear and horrible. The Krillians weren't just bombing cities. They were releasing chemicals that would kill every Volani on the planet, while leaving the environment safe for other species. This was planned genocide. A massive explosion rocked the Sejong as a Krillian missile found its target. Sparks flew from damaged control panels and the lights flickered. "Hull breach on Deck 3, Chief Park reported from engineering. "Emergency force fields are holding, but we've lost main power to the weapons." Do-hyun made the hardest decision of his life. "All ships, this is Captain Lee. Fall back to the edge of the system. We'll regroup and call for reinforcements." The 3 other human ships that had arrived to help also began retreating. They had fought bravely, but they were completely outmatched. The Krillians let them go, more interested in completing their extermination of the Volani. As the Sejong limped away from Verdania, Do-hyun received one final transmission from the planet's surface. It was Elder Tae-min, broadcasting from the Volani capital city. The old Volani leader appeared on screen, his ancient face calm despite the chaos around him. Green fire was falling from the sky, and explosions lit up the forest cities in the background. "Captain Lee, my friend," Tae-min said in his gentle voice, "do not blame yourself for what happens here. You fought with honor." "Elder, we're trying to organize a rescue mission," Do-hyun said desperately. Tae-min shook his head slowly. "It is too late for us. The poison in the air will kill us all within hours, but I have one last request. Anything. Tell the humans that we trusted them. Tell them that we believed in their loyalty to the very end, and tell them that they must not let this happen to others." The transmission ended as the Volani capital was consumed by green fire. Within 6 hours, every living thing on Verdania was dead. 800 million beings who had harmed no one, who had only wanted to live in peace, were gone forever. The Sejong and the other surviving human ships regrouped at the edge of the system. Do-hyun's hand shook as he composed his report to Admiral Kim. How do you tell your superior that you failed to protect your closest allies? How do you explain that an entire species has been wiped out while you watched? War Prime Velthar appeared on all frequencies, broadcasting his message across the galaxy. Let this be a lesson to all weak species. The Krillian Empire takes what it wants. Any who stand in our way will share the fate of the tree creatures. This galaxy belongs to the strong. Do-hyun finished his report and sent it on a tight beam transmission toward Earth. The message would take several hours to reach Admiral Kim, and then several more hours for any response to come back. But as the Sejong set course for New Busan Colony, Do-hyun didn't know that his message would trigger something that had been waiting in the darkness for over a century. Far away near the moons of Jupiter, ancient computers received the news of Verdania's fall. Deep in hidden bunkers on Earth, quiet alarms began to sound. The Krillians had just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. They had killed humanity's friends, and humans never forgot their friends. 3 months had passed since the Villani genocide. War Prime Velthar sat in his command throne aboard the massive Krillian flagship destroyer of worlds, reviewing reports from across the Empire. The conquest was proceeding exactly as planned. 4 more species had surrendered without a fight after hearing about Verdania. The Gentle Ones of Kepler 186 had given up their mining colonies. The Crystal Singers of Proxima had handed over their trade routes. Even the proud warrior poets of Vega had sent tribute rather than face Krillian military might. Fear was a wonderful weapon, Velthar thought. Much more efficient than actually fighting wars. His communications officer, a smaller Krillian named Zektar, approached the throne. War Prime, incoming transmission from the human admiral. Which human? I thought we had frightened them into silence. The one called Kim from Earth Space Forces. Velthar's mandibles clicked with amusement. The humans had been pathetically quiet since Verdania. Their diplomats had made some weak protests at the Confederation, but nothing had come of it. The species that claimed to be so loyal to their friends had done absolutely nothing to avenge them. Put the human on screen. I could use some entertainment. The main display flickered to life, showing Admiral Hyunwoo Kim standing in what looked like a military command center. But something was different about the human. Gone was the diplomatic smile and peaceful demeanor. Kim's face was hard as stone, and his eyes held something that made even Velthar pause. War Prime Velthar, Kim said in a voice cold enough to freeze atmosphere. The Terran Defense Council has concluded its investigation into the Verdania massacre. We find you guilty of genocide against our allies. You have 24 hours to surrender yourself and your senior officers for trial. This is your only warning. Velthar stared at the screen for a moment, then burst into laughter that echoed throughout his ship's bridge. Around him, other Krillian officers clicked their mandibles in amusement. Did you hear that? Velthar announced to his crew. The humans think they can threaten us. They have 47 patrol ships and we have 2,000 warships. They want us to surrender. He leaned forward toward the camera. Human, your species is even more foolish than I thought. We killed your tree friends and you did nothing. Now you make empty threats? The Krillian Empire fears no one, least of all a weak species like yours. 24 hours, Kim repeated, his expression unchanged. After that, there will be consequences. I invite you to try, human. My fleet will be waiting. The transmission ended and Velthar immediately ordered the message to be broadcast across Krillian space. Within hours, every Krillian military base was laughing at the pathetic human threat. The recording spread to other species as well, who saw it as further proof that humans were all talk and no action. But something was happening that no one in the galaxy expected. Long-range sensors began detecting anomalies at the edge of Krillian space. At first, the readings made no sense. Massive energy signatures were appearing from empty space as if enormous ships were dropping out of hyperspace. Sensor operator Grixnall, Velthar called to his technician. What are those readings from Grid 7? Grixnall checked his instruments twice before answering. War Prime, I'm detecting 30 large contacts approaching our border, but this is impossible. What do you mean, impossible? The energy signatures are off our charts. Each contact is reading as 3 kilometers long, but the power output suggests ships much larger. And War Prime. These designs don't match anything in our database. Velthar frowned. 3 kilometers was large for a military vessel, but not unprecedented. The Krillian flagship itself was nearly 4 kilometers long. But unknown ship designs were concerning. Are they human vessels? I don't know, War Prime. They're not broadcasting identification signals. On the bridge of the lead dreadnought Dokdo, Captain Sungmin An reviewed his orders one final time. The message was brief and clear. Implement Protocol 7, Total War Authorization. Show no mercy. Captain An was 45 years old and had spent his entire career training for this moment. He commanded one of humanity's Ghost Fleet dreadnoughts, ships so advanced that their technology was centuries ahead of anything the galaxy had seen. Around him, his bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency. These were not the young peacekeepers who served on patrol ships. These were humanity's elite warriors, people who had dedicated their lives to a mission they had hoped would never come. Captain, reported Lieutenant Commander He-Jin Kang from the sensor station. All ships report ready for combat operations. Very good. Open a channel to the Krillian fleet. The main screen showed War Prime Velthar on his flagship bridge, surrounded by his insect-like officers. The alien leader looked confused and slightly concerned, but not yet afraid. This is Captain Sungmin An of the Terran Defense Force ship Dokdo, An said in a voice that carried the weight of absolute authority. You have exceeded your warning time. Prepare for justice. Velthar's confusion turned to anger. What is the meaning of this? Your pathetic species dares to threaten the Krillian Empire? Your warning period has expired. You chose genocide. You will face the consequences. Impossible. Humans are weak. You have no real military power. Captain An's expression didn't change. War Prime Velthar, you are about to learn why humanity has been so peaceful for the past century. It was never because we were weak. It was because we were so strong that we scared ourselves. The Krillian leader's multiple eyes widened as the human ships began to spread out in attack formation. His sensors were finally getting clear readings on the approaching vessels, and what they showed was impossible. Each human ship carried weapons that his computers couldn't identify. Energy readings that violated known physics. Defensive systems that seemed to bend space itself. These weren't the simple patrol ships his intelligence had told him about. War Prime, Grixnall called out, his voice high with panic. These ships? They're not in any of our databases. The technology readings are completely unknown. Velthar stared at the sensor displays showing the 30 human dreadnoughts. Each one was radiating more power than a small star. Their weapons were charging with energy signatures that his best scientist couldn't explain. How? He whispered. How is this possible? You're supposed to be a minor species. Captain An heard the question through the open channel. War Prime, let me explain something about humanity. We are a species that prepares for the worst while hoping for the best. For 96 years we have built weapons we prayed we would never need to use. We became diplomats and peacekeepers because we knew what we were capable of in war. The human captain paused, letting his words sink in. Every patrol ship you've seen is a disguised intelligence vessel. Every defense platform is a concealed weapon system. Every human colony has been gathering data about every species in the galaxy, learning your strengths and weaknesses, preparing for the day someone would force us to abandon peace. Velthar's mandibles clicked frantically as he tried to process this information. But your fleets are small. Your ships are weak. Our patrol fleets are small, An corrected. Our real fleet has been waiting in the darkness for almost a century, waiting for someone to give us a reason to use it. On sensors throughout Krillian space, the truth became clear. These were not the simple human ships that everyone knew about. These were warships built by a species that had been pretending to be peaceful, while secretly preparing for total war. You killed our friends. Captain An continued, his voice growing colder. The Villani trusted us to protect them, and we failed. That failure will haunt humanity forever. But their deaths will not go unanswered. War Prime Velthar finally understood the magnitude of his error. The humans hadn't been weak. They had been hiding their true strength so well that even their enemies believed the lie. Wait, Velthar said desperately. We can negotiate. The Krillian Empire is reasonable. The time for negotiation ended when you murdered 800 million innocent beings. Captain An interrupted. Your species believes that might makes right. Today you will learn what true might looks like. Across the 30 human dreadnoughts, weapon systems that had been theoretical for decades came online. Singularity cannons that could create miniature black holes. quantum displacement bombs that could phase matter out of existence, neural disruption fields that could shut down biological nervous systems from across a solar system. All ships, Captain An announced to his fleet, weapons free. Show them what happens when someone hurts humanity's friends. The war prime Velthar, who had laughed at human threats 3 months ago, now stared in terror at sensor readings that showed his doom approaching. The species he had dismissed as weak had just revealed themselves to be the most dangerous force in the galaxy, and they were very, very angry. Admiral Hyunwoo Kim read Captain Lee's report for the 5th time, hoping the words would somehow change. They didn't. 800 million Vellani were dead, and there was nothing anyone could do to bring them back. The emergency meeting of the Galactic Confederation had been a disaster. Representative after representative had stood up to express their deep concern and heartfelt sympathy for the Vellani people. But when it came time to vote on military action against the Krillians, the chamber fell silent. "The Krillian Empire is too powerful," said Ambassador Thexnar of the Quiloni Federation. "Any military response would only lead to more deaths. Perhaps economic sanctions would be more appropriate," suggested the representative. From the hegemony of worlds. Economic sanctions against a species that had just committed genocide. Hyunwoo had walked out of the meeting in disgust. Now he sat in his private transport ship, flying back to Earth for emergency consultations. The trip would take 3 days, giving him time to think about what humanity should do next. The official government would want to try diplomacy first. They always did. But Hyunwoo had received a coded message before leaving New Seoul Station. It contained only 4 words. "Come home immediately. Ghost." Ghost was a code word he hadn't heard in 20 years. It meant that someone very important wanted to speak with him about something that officially didn't exist. On Earth, Dr. So-Young Park was organizing memorial services for the Vellani across every human colony. The response had been overwhelming. Millions of humans attended candlelight vigils, holding up pictures of their Vellani friends. Children drew pictures of the gentle tree people and left flowers at memorial stones. But alongside the grief, Hyunwoo could see something else growing in humanity. Something cold and angry that had been sleeping for a very long time. "We trusted you to protect them," one colonial administrator had told him during a video call. "You promised the Vellani that humans would keep them safe." Hyunwoo couldn't argue with that. Humans had promised to protect their allies, and they had failed. When his ship reached Earth, Hyunwoo was met at the spaceport by a black government vehicle. Instead of taking him to the Defense Ministry in Geneva, the car drove north into the Swiss mountains. They stopped at what looked like an ordinary research station, but Hyunwoo noticed the hidden weapons platforms and the unusually thick security doors. Inside, an elevator took him down much farther than any normal building would go. When the doors opened, he found himself in a massive underground complex filled with computer screens, holographic displays, and people in military uniforms he didn't recognize. "Admiral Kim, welcome to Deep Six," said a voice behind him. Hyunwoo turned to see Fleet Admiral Minho Choi, the highest-ranking military officer on Earth. Minho was a tall, serious man in his 60s with gray hair and eyes like winter ice. Officially, he commanded Earth's small defensive fleet. Unofficially, he was responsible for projects that didn't appear in any public records. "Fleet Admiral," Hyunwoo said, saluting. "I wasn't aware this facility existed. Most people aren't. Come with me. There are some things you need to see." They walked through corridors lined with blast doors and armed guards. The facility was huge, extending deep into the mountain. Hyunwoo saw laboratories full of strange machines, workshops where people in clean suits worked on devices he couldn't identify, and command centers that monitored star charts covering half the galaxy. "How long has this been here?" Hyunwoo asked. "We started construction in 2291, right after first contact with the Galactic Confederation," Minho replied. "Humans have always been optimists, Admiral. We hoped we'd never need any of this, but we prepared anyway." They entered a conference room where 2 other people were waiting. General Yoon Ji-yoon was a small, fierce woman who commanded Earth's Special Operations Forces. Dr. Ji-won Nam was the head of the Classified Ship Development Division, a department so secret that most government officials didn't know it existed. "Admiral Kim," General Yoon said as they sat down, "we need to discuss humanity's response to the Vellani genocide." The government is calling for diplomatic pressure and economic sanctions, Hyunwoo said. The government, Dr. Nam said with a bitter smile, doesn't know about our real capabilities. They think we're a small, peaceful species with limited military power. We've worked very hard to maintain that illusion. Fleet Admiral Choi activated a holographic display in the center of the table. It showed a three-dimensional map of human space, with red dots marking every colony and blue dots showing the positions of patrol ships like the Sejong. This is what the galaxy sees, Choi said. 47 patrol ships, 12 defense platforms, and some industrial facilities. Nothing threatening to anyone. The display changed and Hyunwoo's eyes widened in shock. New symbols appeared throughout the solar system. Massive structures hidden in asteroid fields, construction facilities in the shadows of gas giant moons, and weapon platforms disguised as civilian stations. This is what actually exists, Choi continued. For 96 years, humanity has been building a military force that could, if necessary, defend our species against any threat in the galaxy. Why keep it secret? Hyunwoo asked. Because the moment other species know how strong we really are, the peaceful coexistence ends, General Yoon explained. Fear changes everything. Better to be underestimated than to have everyone constantly trying to destroy you. Dr. Nam leaned forward. Admiral, have you ever wondered why our patrol ships perform so much better than their specifications suggest? Why our defensive platforms never seem to break down? Why human technology always seems to work just a little bit better than it should? Hyunwoo had wondered about that. Human ships were officially nothing special, but they had a reputation for reliability and effectiveness that went beyond their basic design. Every patrol ship carries concealed weapon systems, Dr. Nam continued. Every defense platform has hidden capabilities. Every piece of human technology in space has been designed to collect intelligence and, if necessary, to fight far above its apparent weight class. The holographic display zoomed in on the outer solar system, focusing on the space around Jupiter's moons. Hyunwoo saw something that made him forget to breathe. 30 ships hung in the darkness, each one 3 kilometers long and bristling with weapons that looked like nothing he'd ever seen before. They were beautiful and terrible, like sleeping giants waiting to wake up. The Ghost Fleet. Fleet Admiral Choi said quietly. 30 dreadnoughts that officially don't exist. Each one carries enough firepower to destroy a small moon. They've been waiting here for almost a century, hoping they'd never be needed. But the Krillians killed our friends, General Yoon said, her voice hard as steel. And that changes everything. Hyunwoo stared at the massive warships. What are you asking me to do? The civilian government will try diplomacy, Choi replied. That's their job and they're good at it. But diplomacy didn't save the Volani. If we want to ensure this never happens again, we need to show the galaxy what happens when someone commits genocide against humanity's allies. Are you talking about war? We're talking about justice, Dr. Nam said. The Krillians believe that might makes right. They think they can kill whoever they want, because they have the biggest fleet. It's time to show them they're wrong. Over the next several hours, the 4 military leaders discussed plans that had been prepared decades ago, but never used. Plans for deploying humanity's hidden fleet. Plans for revealing weapons that violated the known laws of physics. Plans for showing the galaxy that humans were not the peaceful, weak species everyone believed them to be. Meanwhile, across human space, people continued to mourn their Volani friends. Dr. So-young Park stood in the memorial garden on New Busan, reading the names of every Volani who had died. Children placed flowers next to pictures of their alien playmates. Families shared stories about the gentle tree people who had welcomed humans with such trust and kindness. The grief was real and deep, but underneath it something else was growing. Something cold and patient and absolutely deadly. In workshops hidden throughout the solar system, engineers who had spent their careers building peaceful machines began activating systems they had hoped never to use. Chief Engineer Woo Jin-ko received orders that made his hands shake. Prepare the Ghost Fleet for deployment. Full combat readiness in 72 hours. On the surface, humanity continued to appear peaceful and diplomatic. Admiral Hyunwoo Kim returned to New Seoul Station and filed reports calling for increased Confederation pressure on the Krillian Empire. Human representatives in the galactic government made speeches about justice and accountability. But deep in the darkness between worlds, 30 ships that had never seen battle began their startup sequences. Weapon systems that had been dormant for decades came online. Crews who had trained their entire lives for a mission they thought would never come reported to their stations. The Krillians, confident in their victory, began planning their next expansion. They had destroyed the weak Villani and faced no real consequences. The galaxy had shown them that they could kill anyone they wanted as long as they were strong enough. War Prime Velthar sent messages to other species, demanding tribute and threatening conquest. The insect warriors believed they had learned an important lesson. The Battle of Krillian Prime lasted exactly 4 hours and 27 minutes. Captain Sungmin An watched from the bridge of the Dokdo as the first wave of human weapons struck the Krillian fleet. What happened next would be remembered throughout galactic history as the most one-sided military engagement ever recorded. The lead Krillian battleship, a massive vessel called Death's Claw, simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, bristling with weapons and armor. The next moment there was empty space where a 4-kilometer warship had been. Singularity. Cannon successful deployment, reported Weapons Officer Min Ho. John, target completely consumed. War Prime. Velthar watched in horror as ship after ship of his mighty fleet was destroyed by weapons that shouldn't exist. Human singularity cannons created miniature black holes that swallowed entire vessels. Quantum displacement bombs phased Krillian ships into parallel dimensions, leaving behind only twisted metal fragments. Return fire, Velthar screamed at his crew. All ships attack the humans. The Krillian fleet opened fire with everything they had. Green energy beams and explosive missiles filled space between the two fleets. For a moment, Velthar hoped that superior numbers might still win the day. His hope died when the human defensive systems activated. Captain Inho Park commanded the assault carrier Guangito, a ship designed to deploy thousands of small fighters. But these weren't ordinary fighters. As Krillian weapons approached his ship, swarms of tiny defensive drones poured out of the Guangito's launch bays. The drones moved with impossible speed and precision, intercepting every missile and energy beam before they could reach the human ships. But more than that, the drones seemed to learn from each attack. They adapted their defensive patterns in real time, becoming more effective with every passing second. Adaptive defense grid is functioning perfectly, Park reported to Captain An. Enemy weapons are completely ineffective. Commander Yejin Kang led a squadron of human stealth frigates that seemed to exist in several dimensions at once. Her ships would appear from nowhere, destroy a Krillian vessel with weapons that ignored armor and shields, then vanish again before return fire could be targeted. Stealth Group 7 reporting. Kang's voice crackled over the communication system. 12 enemy ships destroyed. No damage taken. But the true horror of human military technology became clear when Fleet Admiral Min Ho Choi activated the neural disruption fields. Invisible waves of energy swept across space, passing harmlessly through metal and electronics, but striking the Krillian nervous systems with devastating effect. Across the enemy fleet, insect-like warriors collapsed at their stations as their brains simply shut down. What is happening? Velthar gasped, feeling his own mind growing fuzzy. Neural disruption fields, Captain An explained over the open channel. We studied your biology for decades, War Prime. We know exactly how your nervous system works and we know how to turn it off. The technology was precise and terrifying. Human weapons could distinguish between different species' neural patterns, shutting down Krillian minds while leaving other life forms completely unharmed. It was a weapon designed specifically for this enemy, created by scientists who had spent 90 years preparing for this exact war. Velthar tried to order his ships to retreat, but half his crew was unconscious and the other half was too confused to follow orders. Around him, the pride of the Krillian Empire was being systematically dismantled by forces beyond their comprehension. Please, Velthar broadcast on all frequencies. We surrender. The Krillian Empire surrenders. The time for surrender was before you committed genocide, Fleet Admiral Choi replied from his flagship. You chose extinction for our allies. You will face the same choice. The human ships didn't just destroy the Krillian military fleet. They began targeting every military installation, shipyard, and government facility in the system. Weapons platforms that had protected Krillian space for centuries were vaporized in seconds. The massive orbital shipyards where new warships were built disappeared into artificial black holes. But the humans showed mercy to civilians. When they detected civilian evacuation ships leaving the planet, the human fleet let them pass unharmed. Transport vessels full of non-combatants were escorted to safety by the same ships that were destroying military targets. "Attention Krillian civilians," Captain On broadcast on all frequencies. "You have 12 hours to evacuate military zones. Any ship broadcasting civilian identification codes will be allowed to leave safely. Any ship that fires upon human forces will be destroyed." Dr. Ji-won Nam had designed the human weapons not just to win battles, but to demonstrate that humanity could distinguish between warriors and innocents. The message was clear. Humans were capable of mercy, but only for those who didn't threaten the innocent. War Prime Velthar made one final desperate attempt to save his empire. He activated the planet's ultimate defense, a massive orbital fortress that had taken 50 years to build. The fortress was armed with the most powerful weapons the Krillians possessed, protected by shields that could withstand the explosion of a small star. The fortress lasted 18 seconds. Captain On targeted it personally with the Dokdo's main singularity cannon. The artificial black hole that formed consumed the entire fortress so quickly that its final weapon discharge was cut off mid-beam. Where the pride of Krillian engineering had stood, there was now only a slowly evaporating gravitational anomaly. "Impossible," Velthar whispered. "This cannot be happening. We are the strongest military force in the galaxy." "You were," Admiral Choi corrected. "You forgot that there's always someone stronger. Today, you met them." As the battle entered its final hour, the human fleet demonstrated the true extent of their technological superiority. Ships appeared and disappeared at will. Weapons struck targets from impossible angles. Defensive systems that should have been overwhelmed handled thousands of attacks without strain. But perhaps the most terrifying display came when the humans revealed their ability to manipulate time itself. Krillian ships that tried to flee found themselves moving in slow motion, while human vessels operated at normal speed. Weapons fired by the enemy crawled through space while human return fire struck at light speed. "How?" Velthar asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Temporal displacement fields," Captain On explained almost gently. "We can slow down time in localized areas. Your ships are moving normally from your perspective, but to us, you're standing still." The War Prime, who had laughed at human threats, now watched his entire military force destroyed by technologies that seemed like magic. Ships that could create black holes. Weapons that could phase matter out of existence. Defenses that adapted faster than any biological mind could process. But the most devastating human weapon wasn't technological at all. It was their memory. "Every Vellani who died is recorded in our archives," Admiral Choi announced as the last Krillian warship was destroyed. "Every name, every life, every dream that you ended. Humanity does not forget our friends, and we do not forgive those who harm them." When the shooting stopped, the Krillian Empire no longer existed as a military power. Every warship had been destroyed or disabled. Every weapons platform had been vaporized. Every government building had been reduced to rubble, but the human fleet had been careful to avoid targeting civilian areas. Krillian cities remained intact, their populations alive but leaderless. The message was unmistakable. Humanity could have exterminated the entire species but chose not to. "The Krillian Empire is disbanded," Fleet Admiral Choi announced to the galaxy. "Any attempt to rebuild military forces will be met with immediate destruction. Krillian civilians who wish to live in peace will be protected. Those who choose violence will join their war prime." Speaking of Velthar, the former leader of the Krillian Empire found himself alone on his flagship's bridge. His crew was either dead or unconscious, his fleet was destroyed, and his empire had fallen in less than 5 hours. "Why?" he asked Captain On, who appeared on his view screen one final time. "Because you killed our friends," On replied simply. "The Vellani trusted humanity to protect them. We failed once. We will never fail again." Velthar's ship was consumed by a singularity cannon moments later. The insect warrior who had believed that might made right learned too late that there was always someone mightier. As the human fleet prepared to return to their hidden bases, they left behind a galaxy that would never be the same. News of the battle spread rapidly through every star system. The species that everyone had dismissed as peaceful diplomats had just demonstrated military power beyond imagination. Admiral Hyun-woo, Kim received the battle report while standing in the Vellani Memorial Garden on New Busan. Dr. So-Young Park stood beside him, tears streaming down her face as she read the names of their extinct friends. "It's over," Yunwu said quietly. The Krillians can never hurt anyone again. Does it bring them back? So Young asked. No, but it ensures that no one else will suffer their fate. In the days that followed, thousands of species applied to join the Terran Protection Alliance. The galaxy had learned that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their incredible technology or their hidden fleets. It was their loyalty to their friends, and their absolute certainty that those who betrayed that loyalty would face consequences beyond imagination.